All right. Welcome, everybody, to the finals of our Scrabble Go community tournament. My name is Will Anderson, and before we go any further, just want to say a huge thank you to all of our players who competed in this event and to our organizers who put this event together. We started with 32 players who signed up play in this community tournament, and we are down to two finalists here who will be playing a best of three series to determine the winner. It's very exciting. It's taken place over the first few weeks of December. And let's get a look at our two finalists who have made it here to play today. So you can see our two finalists today, Richard Spence and Joe Sonier, have made it through the 32 player bracket to compete today, and very different backgrounds as far as their Scrabble experience, but it's very, very clear that both are extremely strong players and that we're going to be in for a treat today. Richard is a longtime NASPA tournament player. He's been playing in Scrabble tournaments competitively since 2006, so quite a wealth of experience, almost 15 years of tournament play. He has been ranked in the top 100 players in the US in the past, and he hovers around that ranking. In fact, he even is a divisional winner at the National Scrabble Championship. He won Division 2 at the 2011 NSC, and that is the highest possible division to not be considered the national champion. It's filled with extremely strong players. Winning that division is no joke. And Richard reports that he enjoys Scrabble Go because you can easily play against all of your Facebook friends. It's been a total lifesaver. Speaking personally for myself, during the pandemic, to still be able to play all my Scrabble friends easily. And he also enjoys the other mini games just as a fun diversion. So that's Richard, and his opponent Joe is a passionate amateur player, but clearly a very, very strong player in his own right. And he reports that he's been playing Scrabble since he was a kid. In fact, I think Richard also was a youth Scrabble competitor. We'll have to ask him about that later. But Joe says that on the older version of Scrabble, he played 35,000 games between 2009 and earlier this year with the release of Scrabble Go. And he reports that he loves Scrabble Go, not only the classic version that we're going to see today, but also the arcade version and the arena mini games, which I sort of agree with him on this. They're sort of a really fun way to get better at Scrabble by doing like cross training, doing a little bit different type of skills than playing Scrabble. And Joe, as an amateur player, what we mean by that is has not competed yet in tournaments, but he was just telling me before the broadcast that he was just on the verge of considering making it out there and playing in his local NASPA club, but just issues with disability and obviously now the pandemic. So he is really thankful for a way to play lots of really strong players on the Scrabble Go app. So let's see. All right, there we go. Got my audio back. Sorry, everybody. So I was just saying that Joe, you can see at the very top part of the bracket. Hope you guys can make out. I know it's a little small, but Joe with a great win over Austin Shin, our Tournament of Champions victor. That is one of the strongest players in the country. And Joe, despite billing himself as an amateur player, came up with a win in that game. Really, really impressive. That shows you that he is a player to be reckoned with. And then also at the bottom of the bracket, you see Richard Spence working his way to the finals, including wins over at least 2 or 3 players that I recognize as other tournament veteran players, including Sean Abbasi, who friend of mine. Yeah, sorry about that audio, everybody. I think I've figured it out. So, yeah, and just a quick look at what the players are competing for today. All right, I have that audio sorted out. So you can see that the players are competing for some fun prizes, not cash prizes, but really interesting set of. So both players have earned themselves some nice rewards for making the finals, but the winner is going to get a full set of tiles of their choice. Wow, I would like that as a prize. So again, this is more of a, this is a for fun community tournament. The players are excited to have made the finals, and they're going to get some cool prizes if they come out on top today. All right, without further ado, enough chatting from me. Let's get to the game, and I think our players are standing by, and I'm going to give them the go-ahead. Richard, if you want to start our game, we'll be ready for the finals anytime. All right, so Richard is about to start his game with Joe, and we are off. So you can see the timers. We are playing with timers, which is unique for Scrabble Go. Richard, we know, is used to playing with a timer as a seasoned tournament veteran. Oh, let me just make sure you guys can't hear me. All right. Okay, there we go. So Richard opening with what seems to be a blank bingo of halogen. So Richard starting his game on the right foot in the finals. So this is game 1. You're just joining. We're just starting with the very first move of the finals, and it is a good one for Richard as he spots his bingo of halogen. And that's with a blank E. Have anything? Oh, let's stop this. And let's let Joe begin his game. All right, so a great start for Richard. Not as good tiles for Joe to rebut. Oh my gosh. And if you see Richard's rack, he has drawn an incredibly huge bingo that's going to play to the G of halogen, of affixing. And it's going to be difficult for Joe to block that. Obviously, he has no idea that Richard has such a huge play to the G. If I were Joe here, I'd be looking for a play potentially underlapping underneath underneath halogen, or maybe to the H of halogen. It seems like a great chance that Richard is going to get this enormous bingo down to the G of halogen and take a huge lead in game 1. And just for the record, if you're wondering, each player will get an opportunity to go first in one game. And if necessary, if the series goes to a decisive third game, the player who wins their game by more points will go first in that third game. And it looks like Joe is going to make a solid overlapping play underneath halogen, and Richard's dreams of playing a fixing for an enormous score there. Oh, let me make sure that oh, we had an untimed play. That's okay. In fact, I'll just reset the clocks. 24 minutes. Took him about a minute. There. And I will get the muscle memory for this down. So, Wow, so that's definitely disappointing for Richard. He had a huge play to that G ready to go down, and he is considering playing a fix, which looks like a solid play. As yeah, so for Richard, he'll still have his option of some solid plays here. Simply playing a fix from the A of halogen will achieve the goal of, see, he has those two F's and two I's and an X, and the play of a fix is going to accomplish that goal of undoubling the I's and scoring pretty well with the X. The only issue with it is simply that he's about to make his play official here. The only issue is that it does give some nice opportunities to parallel that X. Right, I have the timer correct now. And it is over to Joe. So even though Richard doesn't get down a fixing, he's still in firm command of the game. Joe will be able to overlap that X somehow. Um, Something like gown and ox would be a reasonable option to score solidly. Also, I would just add for those following along on Facebook or Twitch, thank you very much for watching. If you follow my channel on Twitch, you get a couple extra cool options as we see ow go down. That's the type of overlapping play that we suggested. And back over to Richard now. But yeah, if you see the link to my Twitch channel on the lower left, if you follow along on Twitch, that's where I'm watching the chat. I'm going to try to interact with you guys. And you also get some perks like you can actually query the definitions of the words that you see using my bot. But wherever you are most comfortable watching, that we're glad to have you aboard. So after a fix and ow for Joe, it is back over Richard, if he has anything here. The frustrating thing from Richard's perspective is that after Joe's play of ow, this spot alongside the X right here, oops, right here, let's see if this works. Yes, I can draw. This spot parallel to ox is really appealing, but Richard actually does not have any hooks to ox on his rack that play in this dictionary. So answer to the question, what dictionary we're using, this is the Merriam-Webster version of the US dictionary. So instead of being able to play there, he's going to make an overlapping play on top of halogen, and that looks like a pretty good choice for him there. Scoring solidly. Thanks to Brenjam for the 6 months of Twitch Prime. Yeah, this was a cool tournament that was held, as we do see the move Dan go down. And it's back over to Joe now with Richard with a solid early lead. So again, one interesting difference playing on Scrabble Go compared to over the board play is players can place words on the board and use the app to tell them whether they're valid. So you should expect to see these players doing some trial and error, putting some words on the board, putting some plays, using the board as a workspace, which you don't typically see in over the board play. As Joe makes a really nice overlapping play of urge and gox, you can see he did have a letter that let him overlap the OX, and he correctly uses it there for a solid score, 31. So after the early bingo of halogen, Joe really dodged a bullet by managing to block a fixing. There's no way he could have known that, but it turned out that he really helped his cause there, and he's still in striking distance. If he can get the next bingo down, he'll be able to close this gap. But unfortunately for Joe, he's drawn the J, which is a great tile for scoring in certain situations, but really not so good for playing a bingo. So I would say that Richard is a little bit closer here to getting the next bingo down, simply because he's got some good low point tiles and an S to go with them. I can catch up. That play of Urge looked like a really strong play from Joe's perspective. And good Richard do here? So when I'm caught up, I can offer some analysis. Let's see if this works. Yep. So this. Oh boy, I need. Okay. Well, that's obviously not right. So we'll try to work on that between the breaks, and we'll just go with my brain here. Unfortunately, my Quackle window is not live updating, so that's okay. I'll just be the translator for that. See if we can get that working on one of our breaks. We'll be taking quick breaks between these games. Um, so, with an early lead for Richard, he's going to be thinking about should I play defense? Or he could be looking at these nice tiles and saying to himself, even though I'm winning, my tiles are telling me that I need to make an offensive play. So there are a couple of different ideas that he could do here. If he wants, he could play something putting an M in this spot with mu. And the benefit of playing an M alongside the EW is that SMU is also a word and he has an S. So if he were to make a play putting an M in this spot right here, it would be a very, very offensive play that helps his S score a lot more. But he has the lead. He doesn't really need to worry about that. So instead, it looks like he's going to make a much more defensive play, which is certainly warranted given the score of the game. If he were trailing, it might be more defensible to make such a offensive move. So it's definitely different directions that he could take this turn, giving it a good think. Okay. Obviously, let me know if you guys are having any issues technically. We'll try to get those sorted out. As we see, he plays middies. That's an interesting choice. So it's obviously more defensive than making a setup on the other side of the board with mid, as I had suggested here. That would have been a very, very offensive play. Maybe not warranted, given that Richard is the one with the lead. Um, and oh, thank you so much to Azima for the follow. Appreciate that. Um, from the Facebook stream, Will, what's your guesstimate at how much playing on the app increases your average score versus playing on a real board? Well, so is that question? Do we think it's easier to? Oh yeah, okay, I get it. So playing on the app would increase your score because, as I said earlier, you can try moves that you're not 100% sure of. Um, on the app, whereas in person, if you try a move you're not 100% sure of, it could get challenged off and you would score 0 points for that turn. Whereas on the app, you are simply told that your word isn't valid and you get another try. So it's definitely, my guesstimate would be, so I think generally on the app, I feel like the top players have scores of maybe in the high 30s for average move per turn. And I think the top players live, even in the more expansive international dictionary, have average scores per move in the mid 30s. So it seems like it's worth a few points to play on the app and be able to play with what we call void challenge, where you literally cannot put a word on the board that isn't valid. So Joe plays Lin alongside middies. Interesting choice. He holds on to his J. So The J, as I said earlier, definitely a tile that's going to obstruct your ability to play bingos very easily. Um, so it would have been interesting to see if he wanted to play that there um, instead of the L. But I guess I think he might have had two L's there. So potentially using one of the two L's was appealing to him. So yeah, Richard is having wishful thinking. He has the valid 7-letter word of goatier on his rack, but of course, it doesn't look like it plays here in this dictionary. So, yeah, that's a good point, actually, by Brenjam on Twitch, which is that maybe for intermediate or less experienced players, playing on the app would be an even bigger difference maker, just because really, really experienced players that have studied the dictionary are less apt to have that guesswork where you put a word on the board you're not sure of. So maybe for lower level or intermediate players, it's even better to play on the app as opposed to over a board. But certainly don't let that dissuade any of you guys that really enjoy playing on the app. It is a whole new world for you guys out there. If you give it a try in live tournaments, back when we used to be able to do that, hopefully we can get back to that at some point next year. It's been a real life changer for me to compete in live tournaments. A lot of my best friends are Scrabble players that I've met over the board playing. And if you're a really big Scrabble fan, I really encourage you to try it because um, this is your tribe, whether you know it or not. These people. So thank you for yes, thank you to Anas Farhan. Yes, I did. I did just lose to very strong player Wasim Khatri in a recent match. Thanks for following the channel. Um, so it's back over to Joe. He continues to be saddled with this J, and he plays ENS underneath, making a whole boatload of 4-letter words there. But that S, not as valuable on this board as it currently is, or rather, as it usually is, just because this big halogens hook was taken up by Richard. So now it's actually kind of hard to use an S to pluralize any of these words on the board. Um, so Oh, a beautiful play potentially coming down here for Richard of Uremia. You can see he's put it on the board and he's thinking about it. That's going to be a really, really nice option for him. Richard, you see, has 5 vowels, only 2 consonants. By playing Uremia would be, that's a whole bunch of vowels, 3 vowels off of his rack, and only 1 consonant. So that looks like what the doctor ordered for him. But let's see what he opts to do. If I can catch up to the NS was played. That's going to be one of the stronger options for. Oh, okay. That looks like a very safe option. So he goes with Uremia. That has some major benefits. It it leaves him with a bingo on his rack here, but I don't think it's going to play of obviate. Go back over to Joe. Um, so yeah, question: were the previous rounds of this tournament best of 3? The answer to that is no. They were simply one game, one-off matches, which that's a lot of fun just to for upsets, kind of like what Joe achieved against Austin Shin, who again, Austin with an incredibly strong performance in the NASPA Tournament of Champions a few months back, literally one of the strongest players in the world. And Joe was able to defeat him, and that's because it was one of those things. Anything can happen in one game of Scrabble, and that's part of what makes the game fun, in my opinion. That's subject to debate, of course. Um, We see Joe is thinking about playing Yar, and sure enough, that is what's played. So that J, just note that um, there was an opportunity for Joe to play his J as far back as Lin. That play you see upper part of the board right here. So he could have played Jin there instead. And that J continues to sit on his rack, and now Joe's rack has really gone down the drain here with 7 consonants. I guess you've got the Y to help get something onto the board here, but definitely a tale of 2 racks here. Richard with balance. He has a bingo, even though it will not play on this board. But he has a nice mixture of vowels and consonants, and we are going to see Richard make a strong play, I think, as he does try Uremia, just to see if that is valid, which it is not. But he's going to play something very big through this R on the bottom of the board, and I think he's going to settle on Bravo, which looks like a wonderful play. 42 points here for Richard. He's already up almost 60 points, and he's going to get another 42 on top of that. Really nice play here for him. So now he's up almost 100. As we go back over to Joe, and Joe is in trouble here with this rack, simply because with all of these consonants, it's going to be very difficult for him to shed them productively and trim this deficit at all. It may be the case, and you can see he's going for the tile swap, which is entirely defensible for him here. He's got to swap a bunch of tiles, and here, okay, he keeps JY, which is an interesting choice. So that's definitely the sort of play that if you are more confident in your scoring ability than your bingo finding ability, it's possible that you're going to want to keep that J. But ultimately, that's still, I think his way back into the game is going to be more bingos than scoring. And again, the J is somewhat runs counter to that goal. As we see Richard play Oak and Gink, nice play there to score quite well. 27, continuing to run his lead up in this game. And so it's really not gotten any better for Joe here. After his exchange, leaving JY, he's drawn an extremely poor pick from the bag of PBVUU. So that wasn't helping any set of letters that he were to have kept on his exchange. That's, I think it's fair to say that he's just not had a good run of the tiles here. So yeah, he's looking for ways to score well with that Y. It's going to be very tough. And this is sort of just we saw Joe exchange on his previous turn. This is kind of a good lesson if you're watching along and you're wondering, was it good to exchange, or if you're thinking that you don't really have a good understanding of when you should exchange. It was totally correct for Joe to exchange on his previous turn. He drew very poorly, and it might actually be correct for him to exchange again here. And you might say to yourself, oh God, I can't exchange twice in a row, can I? And he could play pub. This is a reasonable choice for him here. Actually, the nice thing about pub is that if Richard doesn't block that P, which of course he's going to try to as much as he possibly can, if somehow Richard can't block the P and Joe draws an E, he will play Jupe in this spot at the top of the board. Sorry, I know it's cut off. But you could see that his J would play through that P for a huge score. It's very risky, but it's a risk he has to take down over 100 points against a really strong player. So it's back over to Richard, and he absolutely will have plays through that P that block it off. And, of course, Joe did not draw an E anyway. He's drawn very poorly this game. There's no question about it. Um, but Richard also playing quite solidly as well. So that combination not so good for Joe in game one, but that's why we've got a 3-game series here. So Joe will have a chance to get revenge in game two and prolong the series to a third game. But let's not close the book on this game yet. It is going to be bad news when Richard plays something like Cape through that P. But crazy things can happen in the game of Scrabble. Don't want to say. Actually, he could also play something down from the P of pub if he has a fit that fits there, because he can play something with lobe. Question on Twitch: how frequently do I study and review words? Prior to this year, when I started doing more stuff with Twitch and YouTube, that answer was pretty much every day. Every day I try to carve out some time to study or look at words, and it doesn't have to be that much time. As we see, Richard does play parallel. Instead of playing cape or something like that, he blocks both spots. That's a really clever idea. So just to emphasize, Richard could have played something through this P, but by doing that, he would have blocked the triple lane, but he would still have allowed Joe to play down, making a lobs or lobe hook. So instead, Richard plays 8, which blocks both of those potential lanes in one go. So that's a very nice defensive play. And again, it's just Joe does not have the tiles here in this game to mount the comeback that he. But yeah, just to finish that point, I do try to look at words every day, but it can be as quick as 10 or 15 minutes per day. It doesn't have to be hours a day that you look at the dictionary. Just a few more words that you learn each day, and making it into a habit is the key. Really, really helps your game. From Facebook, if you're behind like Joe is, do you try to hang on to big letters and score a big word on a triple, or do you go for possible bingos? That's a great question. Just look at the board as it's currently. Something I like to do as an exercise when I have a strong tile like a J. When I have the J, I'm looking for an O, right? I want to see where I can play Joe parallel, or I want to see where I can hit a triple word with it or something like that. And it really is somewhat dependent on the board, what I try to do. In this particular case, there are no O's open for him to play Joe parallel for tons of points. And the only triple that's realistically available to him is right here. It's going to be very difficult for him to use his J with a U in that spot. So ultimately, most of the time in situations like this where I'm down a lot of points, I'm going for as many bingos as I can get in a short span. So those really high scoring letters, they can be valuable to you, but you really need to check the particular board that you're on for those opportunities. And you'll find when you do that, most of the time, there aren't that many huge opportunities for tiles like a J or an X or especially a Q to help you get back in the game. Usually those tiles actually stand in your way to achieve that goal. As we see, Joe plays Yup underneath Uremia. And Richard is going to continue to, it's just relentless for poor Joe. You could see he hasn't drawn another vowel. So really tough drawing for him in this game. But the best that you could say for him is he's got another game to right the ship and keep this series rolling. But yeah, thanks for the good questions. Keep them coming. If you have any questions about the games you're watching or Scrabble in general, I'll do my best to answer those. Yeah, he probably scored 122 with his J alone versus Austin. Yeah, maybe he has an affinity for the J based on a positive experience that he had with it. But of course, in Scrabble, you can't extrapolate from one instance into a general rule for anything. Scrabble, the rules of Scrabble are very long haul type rules. And what I mean by that is we have these rules that we go by to figure out which tiles are good, which tiles are bad, what should I do in this situation to get back in the game. And all of those are subject to be broken at any time based on the game situation. As we see sight being suggested, that looks like a really good defensive play. The reason that sight is appealing for Richard is simply that on this board, easily the best chance to get a bingo down for Joe would be on this line right here. And sight really, really effectively blocks that. It puts a C out in space, as you guys probably know. The C cannot accept any two-letter words on top. So it's a great way to block off further action. And sure enough, that's what he plays. So, and Joe is probably going to have to exchange again. I'm sure he doesn't want to. But with 7 consonants, he's going to have very few plays that he'll even be able to fit on the board. So things not looking so good. Have I read Word Freak? Yes, I have. Absolutely. There was a bit of a lag time between reading the great book Word Freak by Stefan Fatsis, and definitely for any Scrabble fans, I highly encourage it. That's a really fun book. As we see another exchange keeping the J for Joe. So this is definitely sort of a stylistic thing for Joe where he's trying to get that big score with the J. We'll see if it comes down. But again, Richard with a very big lead in this game. He's up by not quite 150 points, 140 or so. And he's got another turn and great letters to work with, too. Actually, I misspoke earlier when I said the best. I mean, this was the best bingo lane, which Richard was blocking. But there is another one down here that's pretty open. So a 7-letter word, if either player were to draw one, has a pretty good chance of playing in this spot, going across on the bottom of the so some opportunities there. See that Richard's arranged his tiles to suggest that he knows if he had an open N, he would play Strident. But of course, he doesn't have that tile, so he's going to have to do something else. But I think this is a pretty good situation for Richard, and even apart from being up by 140 points. He's got really good bingo letters, and he can easily use one of those duplicate T's or maybe a D, and he'll be able to potentially bingo to really put this game away in short order after that. So we'll see what he opts to do. He can finally play Joe. Yes, perhaps Joe will play Joe. My name, Will. I am another person with a name that is valid in Scrabble. Anybody else out there have Scrabble valid names? As we do see, Richard just fishes off that lone T all by itself. That's an interesting choice. Let's see what he's drawn. He drew another D. So I don't think that was quite what he wanted to see to get a bingo down, but he can continue to keep fishing. And just for the record, when I say the word fish, that refers to a play just like what Richard just made. He has all low point tiles. He made a play for literally only 2 points right there. We consider that to be something called a fish, where basically you're like throwing your, fishing reel into the water with a whole bunch of really strong bingo tiles, and you're hoping to pull out that one tile that turns your rack into a bingo. So you might be saying, how could that be a good play that Richard just made for only 2 points? And the answer is keeping all of those good letters of STEIRD. he's going to hit that 7-letter bingo that plays on the bottom row of the board or potentially somewhere else so often that it's okay to only score 2 points on that turn because you're so likely to get 70 on your next turn. All right, so that J, finally, the tortured saga of the J for poor Joe, finally gotten it off. He plays J-O, not with the E like his name, but the very, very commonly seen 2-letter word in Scrabble. And he drew relatively well, but again, it's going to require a lot. Um, it's going to require pretty huge plays for Joe with that Z and then probably at least one bingo. And unfortunately for him, time is sort of running out. There's not quite enough tiles left to really mount the comeback that he would like here. Yes. My question about Scrabble valid names. So once again, we are playing with the Merriam-Webster lexicon on Scrabble Go. And the name Kyle was pointed out, and that is valid as we see the D. Okay, another fish for Richard. He plays just his D, and now he's drawn a bingo with the W out of the bag. He's going to play Wristed on top of Bravo on the next turn to end this game. So that is the value of what we call fishing with those two plays that Richard has made, keeping those really strong low point tiles with that ERS combination behind, an ED combination. And by fishing there, instead of playing more tiles, he's guaranteed himself a really good chance at a 7-letter bingo, which we will see go down next turn. I can tell you that because while we're looking at Joe's screen, I just saw Richard put Wristed down on his board and confirm that it is valid. So it's definitely sees it. Joe, meanwhile, sees that really nice insertion play of the R between the C and the Y. That could allow him to potentially score well. He put a Z word on the board just to test it. That would be really helpful if it were valid, of Ziner, but it's not valid. So something like Zanier in that spot, if he were to have an A, would be a great, great play. You could see if one of those I's or E's were an A instead, he'd be scoring a ton. That spot with the Z on the double letter score going all the way across. But he doesn't quite have that. Instead, he just plays die underneath there, and that's keeping really nice letters balanced between the consonants and vowels. But we are going to see Wristed come down here for Richard, and that is going to put game one away, I think, at this point. There it goes. Nicely played by Richard. Another bingo for him. So yeah, tough sledding for Joe here. And I say sledding, I look out my window and there's a lot of snow here. If you're on the east coast of the U.S., probably looking at a lot of snow, or the northeast part of the U.S. right now. And I know that Joe from New Hampshire was hit pretty hard by the snowstorm as well. And fortunately, he kept his power and was able to compete today. And Richard, to add insult to injury, he's drawn the second blank. So we could easily see yet another bingo go down for him. As Vice to the triple goes down for Joe. Nicely played. Still has that Z on his rack. Richard has Shelty lined up on his rack, and you can see the Ginks hook is going to allow him a place to play that, and sure enough, there it comes. He just tests whether that word does take an S hook, and he sees it. From the Facebook stream, what do you recommend for learning the dictionary? Learning all the small letter words, progressing higher, or should you study all 3 to 8 letter words at the same time? That's a great question. I could easily dodge that question by just saying you should learn the words in whatever way is the most fun for you and keeps you learning a few each day. I actually really do stand by that. Where if you don't enjoy studying the shorter words and you just enjoy playing instead, but maybe you enjoy studying the longer words, the 7 and 8 letter words, then that's what you should do. You should play lots of Scrabble and study the longer words. And by playing a lot of games, you'll gradually pick up lots of those shorter words anyway. But if you don't care, if you have equal amounts of fun studying every type of word and all you want is to get better at Scrabble as fast as you can, I would say a mixture of those short words and those really probable 7 and 8 letter words, the ones that have all 1 point tiles in them, the tiles that you're apt to see over and over again as you play Scrabble, those will really add that dimension to your game of bingoing, which is like hitting home runs, right, in baseball. Um, Studying those longer words really helps you flesh out your game in that way. So just try to balance that need to know your short words and add that home run potential to your game of bingoing. Um, and there are lots of computer software that can help you with that goal. Um, it's yeah, I could get into the weeds on that for a while, but I'll just say that there's lots of resources available to help you learn more words and improve your game. Um, as we see, okay, so Richard just passing the 500 point mark. With just playing Chi, and it wouldn't be a game of Scrabble if we didn't see Chi go down uh, every so often, and the Z goes down in response for Joe. And this game is going to wrap up, and there's no question that Richard played very well, and also Joe had a tremendously poor run of the tiles. If you could look back at any moment in the game and say, well, maybe this is where he went wrong, it's possible that playing that J earlier when he had the chance would have led to a very different game. But Joe clearly favors the J. We saw him keep it on a couple different exchanges, and that may have been a strategy that's worked for him in the past. And obviously, it's gotten him this far into the finals of our community tournament. Okay. I don't think there's any issues behind the scenes. There. Okay, so we see. Oh, this might be. I wonder if Richard is being cheeky here. This could be. Let's just look. I wasn't looking at the board, but I think it's entirely possible that Richard has just executed a really, really advanced technique. So take note that Joe has a C on his rack, and the C would have played a moment ago in this spot, making the word sell. But this may have been the only spot for the C to be played. That we call in the Scrabble world a stick. We call this a stick when you are stuck. This tile of the C is literally stuck to Joe's rack because he may not have a place to play a valid word here with that C. So he has ample opportunity to put his C on the board and try to find a place for it to fit. But I think he's going to have to pass his turn back to Richard. And again, if you'll remember, I noted that each player will get a chance, and you see the pass turn, it goes through. Yeah, Joe has quickly realized that there is no place for him to play that C. And the reason that's so clever on Richard's part is that we do have the rule in place where both players will get a chance to go first in the first two games of our 3 game match. And the player who wins their game by the most points will go first, which is a tiny advantage in the 3rd game. So Richard is taking no chances here, and he's made a really, really clever play to wring a few more points out of this victory. Had he simply allowed Joe to play that C, he would not be winning this game by nearly as much, right? Look, he got, oh, as Joe passes again back to Richard. But you can see by blocking that spot, now Richard has been able to score 20 more points, and he's going to get a bunch more points for his N, R, and A. So he's increased his margin of victory by a very, very solid amount. So that is a play that really speaks to Richard's experience level. He's been in situations like this before where he's noticed that his opponent cannot play his or her last tile, and he's executing what we call, as I said, a stick. Really, really cool and impressive on his part, for sure. So Joe is going to continue to have to pass his turn, as Richard being very careful not to open any new spots. And yep, that's he's realizing that once again, this is very common. It's never fun to be on the receiving end of this sort of thing. It's happened to me more times than I care to remember. And finally, Richard is going to finish off the game by playing his last two letters. So you can see the match is over. Let's see if my to me. Oh, audio gone. Yes, I'll fix that on all my scenes during the break. Um, so yeah, I that's an oversight on my part. Thanks, guys. Um, so yeah, we'll take a quick break now. Be back. I'll put a countdown up maybe to let you guys know when we'll be back, and we're gonna see Joe going first in the next game against Richard, and seeking to prolong the match into a decisive third game. So, all right, folks, we'll be back in just a minute. Thanks for watching the first game of the Scrabble Go Community Tournament Finals between Richard Spence and Joe Sonier. Back in just a few minutes. All right, welcome back to the finals of the Scrabble Go Community Tournament over the month of December here. So we just finished our first game of our three-game match between Richard Spence and Joe Sonier. And Richard, with a very strong performance combined with a tough draw for Joe to come out on top in game one. So, yeah, without further ado, the players have just gotten back from their break and they're ready to rock in game two. So, players, feel free to get started as this is going to be Joe's turn to go first. Now I'll be muting myself on the call with them. So, Joe, wow, we've seen Chi just went down in the first game. And let me just start Joe's clock here. Um, and we're probably going to see it again. I'm going to get the score correct for these guys too. Scoreboard is actually Richard won the first game, is up 1-0 here. So again, Richard, the players are just vying to get to those 2 wins first. So if Richard wins this second game, that's going to be it. He'll be the champion of our community tournament, but Joe's got a chance here to even the score at 1 and force a decisive third game. So just a quick... So, yeah, Richard, you'll know as soon as Joe has made his move. I'm not going to start your clock until you see that game pop up on your screen, which has not occurred yet. So no worries there. Back again. Okay, so after some plays, we see a few different choices hit the board there. And it looks like Joe is considering not playing his cue, which I would definitely... I would love to see him get that cue off of his rack here simply because it really tanks his chances of bingoing. And it turns out he does not play that cue here. So we'll see if that comes back to bite him. Let's see how long it takes him to play this cue because that's, I would say typically you want to get that cue off of your rack as soon as possible. So we'll see what... how the game unfolds from here as Joe plays G, which that's a not your everyday word. So definitely some nice knowledge by Joe to play that word here. But the Q can tend to become an albatross over time. So we'll see if that's how this plays out here. Meanwhile, back over to Richard. And he has a W, and I think he's going to want to put that W in the logical place for it, which is right here. If he can figure out a way to do that without offering too much in the way of counterplay to Joe. And he's gonna be looking for options that allow him to do that. And okay, so he plays OW. Is he going to tack this other E on? And the answer is no, he will not. So that's really interesting. That's a great idea for defensive reasons. It tells you a lot about Richard's style. He kept 2 E's on that play when he played ow. So he easily could have used one of those E's right there. Instead, by holding them back, he really restricted Joe's options in response, right? Let's say Richard had played this E. That would have yielded a much bigger lane to play on. Instead, Joe is only able to play for a handful of points by hooking O there. So hopefully that makes sense. Typically, when you have a lot of vowels, you want to try to use them up and keep that nice balance between vowels and consonants. But Richard is saying, while I like having a nice balance as much as anybody, but I don't want to give Joe any opportunities, especially after he's just played GIE to start the game, which looks a little bit ominous, right? When you make a short play like that using low point tiles, the odds are usually pretty good that your opponent if you see your opponent make a play like that, they're keeping more of that type of tile in reserve on their rack. And those tiles usually lead to bingos. What Richard cannot have known in this situation is that, contrary to that, Joe actually kept the highest scoring letter, the Q, on his rack behind. Very rare to see a play like GIE hit the board with a Q in reserve. So that would definitely throw him for a loop there. As Joe plays BAS and Vipers here. So a couple of S's hitting the board in the early going, and another one on his rack. So Joe with 2 of the 3 S's that have been drawn so far. But Richard with a 4-point lead, and he's ready to play. And Joe has the Q still on his rack from that opening turn. So this is kind of that lesson where that Q without an I or a U can really clog things up. We'll see if Joe ends up really regretting not playing his Q on that first move of the game. So it's back to Richard now. He's got a Y. The Y will slot in very nicely in this spot right here if he can find a good play that fits there. I bet he can. So yeah, while we wait as a break in the oh, never mind, I spoke too soon. It looks like he's going to play. Oh, nice idea. He can't fit the Y in that spot, but he plays a very nice 4-letter word of Sime in that spot, using all of his high point tiles to score 36 points in that spot. And because of that J and Q and 3 A's on Joe's rack, he really cannot hit that triple lane here. And back on Richard's rack, if you are an experienced Scrabble player that studied the dictionary, you probably see a couple of different options that Richard could draw into, and one that he even has available here. He does have a playable bingo on his rack. I won't spoil it for those that are looking. So this is a gut check moment for Joe here. I think he sort of has to play J here. Yeah, he's gotta. That's the play that is jumping out to me as the logical one. Ooh, I hope he doesn't use that S. And he does use it. Oh, sorry, that was I didn't do an untimed turn for Richard here for a minute or so. I neglected my clock press didn't work, which is fine. So we'll see if Richard sees what he has on his rack. So anyway, just to give some context about why I didn't want Joe to play that S on that turn. He only gets 1 more point for the S in that situation, whereas the S can guarantee him so many more points in different spots of the board by hooking an S onto another word. So just by holding on to that S, it only would have cost him 1 point and greatly increases his chances of scoring well on his next turn. And Richard spots the bingo on his rack. Releno. Not sure how that would be pronounced. He spots that play, and it is a very nice one for him. A bingo that puts him firmly in command here. So that is going to be a tough one for Joe to overcome. He's facing another early deficit here, and he's burnt through some S's on the way, too. So this Q is just burning a hole in that rack. I guess he can play it right here. He can play cot. That's another word you see over and over again. Or he may opt to try to score to that triple instead. Okay, he's trying the word get, which is not valid. But this Q is going to be troublesome. And we've already seen he's had it since the beginning of the game. Really good lesson for players out there of the Q. He could have drawn a U, and it could have turned into a great score. But the downside risk of it when you don't draw that U, where you don't draw that I is that it just sits on your rack and prevents you from bingoing for long periods of time. He's going to try cath, which I've heard that as slang for catheter, but not valid in this dictionary. So once again, thank you to everybody watching along on Facebook or my Twitch channel, as I think he's going to see coat as an option if he switches the T and A there. But certainly if you're enjoying the broadcast and are curious to know where can I watch more word games, more Scrabble, you see my Twitch link in the lower left of the screen. If you go to that URL and toss me a follow, it doesn't cost you a cent, and you get to watch me play lots of word games, lots of Scrabble, Scrabble Go, other games. So if you'd like to support the broadcast, that's a great, easy way to do it. As we see Sago go down, again, that cue is just sitting there. So we'll see when that eventually finds its way off of Joe's rack. He needs to get that cue onto the board as soon as he can, facing this deficit. So Richard is up by 54. He's got nice scoring tiles, including the Z, the really, really valuable Z. We'll see if he can figure out a way to score well with this Z. I'm looking around, and I don't see a wonderful way for him to do so. If he can't find a good place to score with his Z right now, he can keep it. He could just play ZEE to the E of Releño. That would certainly score quite nicely, or he can save it. And it looks like he's going to save it by playing Uvia, and that's another really advanced idea here for Richard if he opts to do that. So he could have played for many, many more points with his Z on this turn, but his best play using the Z would have kept really weak letters behind on his rack, whereas he can score decently here with Uvia, use up that triple and prevent Joe from doing so himself, right? By playing Uvia, now that spot is off limits. It's used up. And by holding the Z for next turn, Richard is basically guaranteeing himself a really good score on his next turn. And I'm sure he's going to figure out a way to score well with his X or Z. And that's good news for Richard, holding a lead that he has those powerful tiles. Not so good for Joe with that Q that really needs to come out. He has a U to play through, but nothing very good that fits other than just qua, which doesn't seem great. So he has cat spelled out on his rack. I wonder if he's going to try to play that in this spot on top of Releño here. Instead, it looks like he will go for a bit higher of a score. He's going to play Wart for 22. Oh, he's trying Worth. Okay. Gotcha. So he's trying to see if he can get one of his W's and the H off of his rack, which makes sense. He has a play. He could play Wrath through that R, but it's not nearly as good because it doesn't fit that W on the bonus tile that you see right here, the double letter score. It's going to be harder for him to fit a good word there. So he has Wart on the board now. Is he going to play this? And he's going to leave two H's, which we like one H, but two of them together can be tricky. And that is what he opts to do. So Joe is not super far behind. He's down by 50. But again, when you're down by that type of score, the thing you're really looking to get is a bingo that gets you those 50 bonus points and gets you back in the game. And the Q is literally the worst tile in the alphabet to achieve that goal. There are the fewest number of 7 and 8 letter words with a Q compared to any other letter in the dictionary. So that is why, even though the Q is worth 10 points, you're probably saying to yourself, how could a 10-point tile be what I said earlier in the broadcast, the worst tile in Scrabble? And it is a little bit dependent on how good you are at finding bingos. The better you are at finding those 7 and 8 letter words, the worse a letter like the Q becomes. Um, so it is a little bit dependent on the skill set of the player. But somebody like Richard, that's, as I said at the outset of the broadcast, he's been playing Scrabble for almost 15 years. He can find words like Releño very, very consistently. For a player of Richard's experience, that Q actually represents a negative to him. So Joe, who has, is not as seasoned of a tournament player, but is a very passionate amateur player as he bills himself, he may feel that the power tiles like the Q, the X, the J are his best chance to score well. And in many situations, he may be correct. Um, Ooh, clever idea there by Richard. He has resize on the board for 35 points to score with his Z on a triple letter score. And he just checked really quickly to see if he could put a P in front there for pre-size for a bunch more points, which that is not a valid word here. But the cleverest part of resize is if Joe is not able to play in this spot of the board, he's setting himself up to play axe on his next turn, right? We saw that Richard, you look at his rack, he has tax now, even, will play in that spot that he's created if Joe is not able to make a good play there. So let's see what Joe plays. He definitely has choices with his H's to play something down here that would definitely block that big X play. But we'll see what he chooses to do. It's not clear exactly where he should play. And either way, it seems like this is going to be another turn as I get my clock. This is going to be another turn where Joe has this cue that doesn't come off his rack. And it really went back to the very beginning of the game this time where he had that choice. You even saw him put that chi word on the board. Thank you so much for the follow to Bonky the Shiz. Lovely name. Thank you so much for following. Appreciate that. Okay, he plays dit. So he makes that nice hook of resized, but in so doing, he does not block tax because look, taxi is going to go down and you see, oh wow, even better than that. Taxing. Unbelievable play by Richard here. That's tremendous. And you can say, well, Richard got lucky to draw the X, or you can realize that by playing resized and setting this spot up for his X himself, he made this opportunity for himself on that move. Really, really clever play by him. And the play of dit by Joe does not block that X. But thankfully for Joe, he finally sees a U on his rack here. Let's see if he can find a play that uses up this Q. He needs to get it off his rack in the worst way here. So this is definitely looking like a solid situation again for Richard. He's up by over 100. Very, very nice plays, including his bingo early in the game. So he's in firm command, but crazy things happen in Scrabble games. When you've been playing this game for long enough, I'm sure everybody watching along, whether you're playing on Scrabble Go or whether you play Scrabble over the board or any other experience you have, you know that Scrabble is a crazy game. And another follow, thank you to Rezia Banks. Appreciate that. Thanks for watching. So would I play quit here? Yeah, I think I would. I think I would play quit to the T of wart, and the simple reason for that is that you need something crazy to happen here if you're Joe. And something crazy would be playing quit and, oh, he might just play qua, which that, oh boy. Okay, so he plays qua instead, and that is certainly a risk that maybe Joe feels he has to take, but Richard has two eyes on his rack, and he's going to get hit. Joe will get hit hard by a play hooking Aqua to the triple word score right here. And sure enough, Pate, 34 points from a rack of Richards that had all 1 point tiles and a P. So this is probably the best he can do as far as score. He's probably not thrilled that he keeps 3 vowels on his rack. That could become a problem in short order. But the 34 points, too tempting for him to pass up. And sure enough, he takes those points even with, oh man, not only that, Richard leaves 3 vowels on his rack, and he draws 4 consonants for a very balanced rack, and he has a bingo on this rack. Will he spot it on his next turn? If he does, that's definitely going to put this game more or less out of reach for Richard. Won't spoil it yet. I will reveal what the 7-letter word is. It is not disabled through an S. There is another word on that rack, though. Okay, so back over to Joe. He's gotten the Q off his rack. He's drawn a blank. So those are the good pieces of news for him. This blank, he desperately needs to convert this blank into a bingo as soon as he can. And the thing that's blocking him from doing that is his duplicated H's and his duplicated I's. If you're a Scrabble player, if you've played Scrabble for long enough, you sort of get this sense when you have many of the same letter on your rack in duplication or triplication, it constricts your options for what words you can play. Not only that, every letter has unique attributes, right? I have a YouTube series that I'm talking about each letter and the ins and outs of that letter. And if you have many of the same letter on your rack, you're sort of depriving yourself of all of those different attributes where if you had 7 unique letters, oh no, he's going to play hires. Okay. So he goes for a few extra points. He plays hires, and that S is a blank S, which, of course, as I just said, would have liked to see that go down as part of a bingo. Instead, he uses it to grab a couple extra points, but he's really needing many, many more points than that here. So let's see what Richard can find. Okay, so he has a bingo. He looks like he's about to play, so I'll just share. He has the word addible with an I that plays in this spot. It doesn't look like he's going to spot it, so even players at Richard's expertise and skill level, it's possible that some of those weird 7-letter words can get past you. He may still find it, though. I thought he was about to play dude. But yeah, I think that's a word. Let me just confirm. Yes, okay. All right, so that word does get past Richard here. So he had a chance to effectively end the game with a bingo of addible that would have played off of this AT in Wart. It would have played down this line. Instead, he makes a very strong play of dude instead. And the reason dude is so good is it left a really nice balanced combination of letters for him. And you can see he has drawn into a potential bingo to the G, bleating. So even with the miss of addible, I think we are about to see Richard. He's spelled out his bingo that he has here. Joe scores very well with his F in that triple letter score right here, 32 points. He does open up a triple lane, but that lane is only accessible to Richard if he has an E. It's the only 2-letter word that fits in that spot. But he doesn't mind because he's about to get a really nice score with bleeding, 65 points. And that's going to be really tough for Joe. I think that's going to put this game more or less out of reach. As you see, the score up to 100 and almost 160 points lead here for Richard over Joe in this second game here. Had another follow. I missed the name as I was doing commentary. Thank you very much to anybody following my Twitch channel, which you see the link in the lower left. Definitely appreciate anybody following on Facebook. If you're enjoying the broadcast and like this type of word gaming content, um, every week I stream several times a week, different word games, Scrabble Go, other variations of Scrabble, Boggle, old Nintendo games, word games. As we see soundly on Richard's rack, and he's gonna add insult to injury here as it plays opposite Pate, making ES this two-letter word. It goes down right there. Another bingo for Richard, and if in case there was any doubt, down goes soundly to soundly put this game pretty much out of reach at this point for Richard. Really, really nicely played. So there's the game is almost over. There's 4 tiles left in the bag. But with a lead of this size, it's definitely Richard's game to win. It's probably a little premature to put the check mark in for him, but I will do it just so that we have this correct graphic up on the screen. At this point, all that's left is to play out the game. Nice play by Joe of Marrow down to the triple, making my. And that empties the bag. You can see Joe with 5 tiles left on his rack. Richard with not great tiles, but the best time to have weak tiles is when you're up by 150 or more points in a game. So not complaining, I'm sure, is Richard. And interestingly, this is purely academic at this point, as Richard is cruising to his second victory in the series and to the championship in our community tournament. But it is worth noting, you think Udon is going to go down, that's a solid idea, that Joe is the only one with ease that would still play parallel to here. So we're probably going to see something like Fett go down that spot, maybe. But either way, very, very impressive performance by Richard Spence here in this finals matchup. And commiserations, obviously, to Joe Sonier, who has fought his way through a field of 32 players to make the finals here, including some great wins along the way, and just sort of came up short with the tiles at the very end. And sure enough, we do see him make that play with the E, as I suspected he would. And scoring very nicely on the triple, and that Mike hook. Very nice word knowledge by Richard to hook his C onto MY, and that's going to be it for this game. So a solid win again. Get to this screen. Okay, now I have to unmute the two of you. And as soon as, okay, there's Richard and Joe. All right, so that's it. It's a 2-0 victory for Richard Spence over Joe Sonier in the finals of the Scrabble Go Community Tournament. Commiserations, Joe. That was just, you're up against a buzzsaw there of a very strong player who's drawing quite well. And obviously, you were going to be in trouble in that second game after bleating, but then soundly comes straight out of the bag.
Yeah,
And that just about does it.
Yeah, that's kind of where my spirit went. I said, well, that's that.
Yeah, that's a tough
I mean,
one.
I tried to then just shoot away, but I didn't have enough. There wasn't enough time or letters left. So
yeah, that's
plus that's a big gap. That's
Yes, that is a big gap against any player, let alone somebody of Richard's caliber. So Let's see. So I think from a spectator standpoint, the only thing that I was curious about, and it seemed like it took a while for that cue, it seemed like, Joe, you were so close to playing your cue on that opening move of the game.
Mm,
Did you have any thoughts on that move? Certainly, you can easily pick up a U that helps you deploy that cue better, and you just weren't able to get one until the middle of the game. What's your
so
thought on that?
that's a move that opening with chi is I've always been torn on whether or not to do it
I do that pretty
because
frequently.
you're limiting the value, you're limiting what you get with the Q, and you can get so much more if you get decent letters on your draw.
True.
So I decided to go. I didn't like leaving that the E on D
Yes, that E and
between
that
those two double letters.
O G. Yeah, not so good. Right,
Right. No,
right.
yeah, but
Yeah, it's tough.
it was, yeah. So that was a tough call, and then it took a long time to get a chance to play it.
Yeah, so that's I mean that's the we I was saying on the broadcast that as you gain more time and experience and most importantly comfortable, that comfort level with finding those 7 and 8 letter words consistently on your rack the way that Richard can do because of his experience with studying the dictionary and learning over time.
Did you
That's
see a lot
where
that I missed?
What's that?
Did you see a lot that I missed?
Oh no, not really. I don't, not in the way of bingos there. But part of that is that the Q is really an albatross when it comes to 7 and 8 letter words, particularly. It's great when you pick that U and draw those intermediate scoring plays, but it can have that tendency to sort of collect that dust on your rack over time if you're not able to pick that U. And ultimately, it is a function of just tough luck as well.
So you would have
It,
played it on that first turn.
Yeah, I think for me, and that's for me specifically with my
Richard.
skill set and with Richard's skill set, who's been playing Scrabble over the board in tournaments for 15 years and knows words like Relenio, which a beautiful find
Never heard of
by
it.
Richard.
yeah,
Yeah,
Rayendo
exactly.
took me a while to
Yeah,
find. Right?
Relenio. Yeah, however you would say
Rayendo,
that. Um,
Spanish.
so yeah, that's that sort of skill set. If you know tons of those 7 and 8 letter words, playing off that cue is probably advisable because it increases your chance of drawing those bingo length words. But
Right.
really, ultimately, it is totally a function of your skill set as a player, and it's gotten you into the finals. So can't get away from the techniques that have gotten you this far.
Well, no, and regular people have a really hard time beating me. So
For sure, yeah,
that's
no,
good.
and
So
it's
if I, if I just hang out,
yeah, there is no
yeah.
question that Richard is not your regular Scrabble player
So,
off the street. And over to
no.
Richard now. I want to ask Richard about your play of resize. Can you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking on that play? Because it looked like
Yeah.
a great play to me. What was your thought process?
Well, so I had the X that turn, and the previous turn was interesting because I was debating between Uvia and Z, like ZEE.
Yes.
But I thought Uvia just like I didn't want to keep the V and the U at the same time because if I play Z, I keep like AIUTV, I think.
That's
Um,
right. Yeah,
so
I was remarking that you could have hit that Z on the triple, but it was
yeah,
a
but
really advanced play to play Uvia instead and save that Z, and you can see it really
yeah, and
paid off as you set that
well,
X up for yourself. And a
yeah, and then
solid
I drew the
play,
X. And,
yeah, a solid
yeah,
play by
I was like,
Joe
okay,
to hook resized with that D, but that I of dit managed to somehow not block the X setup and you hit taxing
well,
for 60. A beautiful setup play. That really gave you the advantage that you ended up holding on to. Um, so yeah, very well played. Congratulations to both of you guys for making it this far into the finals. And again, great prizes for the both of you getting this far. Lots of tiles and gems and other in-game rewards for competing. And just want to thank you guys for being so game to come on to the broadcast and play a couple games of Scrabble for us.
Yeah, that was a fun
ton
tournament.
of fun. Yeah. Richard, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Good.
playing.
You're a great player.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll rematch you. We'll just keep playing.
That's right.
If you want.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah, if
stopping
you want,
you guys
you
from
can play some more.
continuing on.
Yeah, I need to lower my rating.
All right, so I'm going to put you guys on mute again as we cut back to just me. And I know I'm not on screen yet. I promise I will be in a second. As activate my camera here. There we go. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching along. So congrats to Richard Spence for coming out on top in the finals of our Scrabble Go community tournament. And again, just want to thank all the players who competed in this event, as well as our organizers from Scopely. Special thanks to Glenn and Francesco behind the scenes, doing a ton of work to organize and get this event up and running. Yeah, appreciate everybody watching along on Facebook and Twitch. And just a quick plug for myself, if you enjoyed the broadcast and want to watch more word game content like this, you can hop over to the Twitch URL you see, that's my channel, and toss me a follow. I stream lots of different word games, tons of Scrabble every week, 2 or 3 times a week. So if you enjoyed the broadcast and want more of it, that's how to get it. Anyway, I think, let me just see if there's any more that I think we're all set here. So on behalf of Scopely and Scrabble Go, just want to thank everybody again for watching. And we'll see what's down the pipeline. There may be more events like this coming down the pipe soon. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.